we're looking at what these guys were doing in the UK. So please welcome up Brent Hoberman. Hi, Brent. Very welcome. Please have a seat.
Thank you.
So, you and Marta created lastminute.com. How long time is it now?
A long time ago.
Yeah,
Yeah, we were both much younger. 97, 98.
97, 98. And lastminute.com, it was kind of a sort of, the more we are, the cheaper it gets. And if you buy things in last minute, you can get really good deals.
Yeah, unsold inventory across whether you're going away, going out, or staying in after last minute.
And since then, you've been an investor in many companies, and you've been sort of circling around e-commerce in different companies. Do you want to sort of take us through a little bit of what you look for in e-commerce companies and some of the companies you're involved in?
Yeah, sure. I guess obviously what we love is, like everyone, proper innovation, proper disruption, and big enough markets. Now, having said that, it's really hard. I mean, it's sort of like in some business, the problem with investing today is you look at these big giants and you're like, well, Google's going to eat that one, and Amazon's going to eat that one, or eat, if you're lucky, they might buy you, but more likely they're just going to kill you. So trying to find ways through that. So I guess one of the obvious trends that doesn't apply to those big giants is collaborative consumption. So this idea of sharing what you own, and I think today is actually somebody's launched that this is Global Sharing Day or something. By the way, we should be celebrating it.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, exactly, I'm sure. So obviously that's the big.
And which industries do you think will be are most adaptable for that sharing? Is it sort of we all share cars, or what will it?
Cars I love with Easy Car. We're trying that obviously. I think sharing your time is the other one, obviously. There's possessions, and then there's the TaskRabbits of this world that are about just, and Fiverr in Israel is doing very well as well in the sort of rent out your time for micro tasks.
And how does that work? What kind of time can you rent and rent out?
Well, I think so. Fiverr would be typical. Say, I want who will create a personalized message for my girlfriend and sing it for $5. Yeah, it's all sorts of stuff like that, but it's pretty big. And then obviously there's accommodation, and then there's renting of like garden utilities. The idea that you only use your lawnmower every week, and so somebody else should use it the other days, and why should you all buy one?
And you've invested in Easy Car?
Yeah, in Easy Car with Stelios from EasyJet. Yeah. So we thought the brand was great. I thought the brand was great to adapt to, because obviously trust is so important in this new world. The big challenge there is trust.
And how does that work then? How do I get a car?
Well, what you do is the first thing to get, the challenge is liquidity in a micro area. So you really have to do it by tiny area. You say, look, Notting Hill Gate in London is, for example, you say, right, we need within every the ideal, we haven't got there yet, is within every 5 minutes you'd have a car that you could rent out. Then the question is, how does that process work? Do you have to install automation stuff in the car like Zipcar does, so then it's automated from your mobile, and I can unlock the car from my mobile. That's great, but it's expensive and a barrier. Or you do the very simple version, which Stelios has come up with, which is just you have a lockbox, single-use PIN code. I put, in other words, a sort of safe outside my door, and I give someone the keys in that. So I guess that's very much the easy, his brand's way of the very low-cost way. And it's, I of course love the technology, love investing for growth, and think, why don't we do it the proper way? But I think there's an argument, there's a path you go to, like the popular cars. Once a guy's rented his car X number of times, then you upgrade him to an totally automated solution.
You're also in Made.com, one of my favorite e-commerce companies. You can find wonderful design furniture at a fraction of the cost you will find it anywhere else, and it's sort of crowdsourced from designers in China and elsewhere. Could you sort of tell us a little bit about Made?
So Made, so one of the reasons why we like Made, again, when I first looked at the furniture industry in about 05, 06, just having sold lastminute.com and bought a house and thought I thought I'd do everything online and couldn't because it wasn't really available. So I thought, well, and then I started talking to people in the industry and realized this industry was quite archaic, and basically one of the reasons is the market leaders. A great thing is industry where you have real fragmentation. So the market leaders, at least in the UK, I know we're here in the home of IKEA, but at least in the UK, even IKEA only has 6% market share. So you've got, and they're the leaders, so you've got a hugely fragmented supply base. So what Made.com is basically saying is, look, we'll go to, act as a platform for designers. A designer will put up a design of this chair. enough people vote for it, then we'll say, great, we know there's demand, we'll make it, and we'll ship it straight from the factory to the consumer, cutting out the retailer, the wholesaler, and wastage, saving the customer about 70% on beautiful designer product. So that's the sort of disruptive model that we love.
And if you would sort of run a last minute today, or knowing what you know about e-commerce, sort of what's 3.0 for e-commerce?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking one thing we could, Joel, is we could talk about all the different threads that people think are 3.0, and then we could ask the audience to tweet what's the perfect model that incorporates every aspect of 3.0. Okay. We can run a competition, then you and I could invest in that model that includes all of it.
Done deal.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot in 3.0 that people talk about. So if you look at, like, going back your question about lastminute.com, way back then, I think we were way too early in so many things. So it's quite fun to look back and think that in 2000, we did voice recognition. I mean, you could buy a hotel by talking to our database. It was, I admit, a gimmick. It was too hard and didn't work often enough. We did location-based deals on your mobile phone. On WAP, though. Remember WAP?
Where are the phones?
Yeah, exactly. So it was, you know, you had the discounted deal. I could walk out here and say, I want a discounted theater, restaurant, hotel, whatever, based on where I am, and you could do that. And I loved the idea, but of course, it didn't work well enough. It was a gimmick again. So I think much of the thing is all these things, so much in this business is you can be too early. And then, you know, so if I was doing last minute, I'd be much more aggressive on mobile. We've done a few mobile e-commerce investments as well, and more coming. I would be desperately worried about differentiation, because what's happened now is this, the web, at the time there was friction. There was more friction in the web, so you couldn't get that sort of, getting that unsold hotel room inventory wasn't as obvious as easy as today. So now you've got to try and get one step ahead. I think personalization is the other big trend that I don't think any travel company's got right, and it's a really strange thing. Again, when you look back, it was in our whole pitch at the beginning. We're like, we're going to be CRM, we're going to be, because we'll know what you're doing when you're going out, when you're going in, we'll know you better than anyone else and be able to recommend you when you go to Barcelona. We'll know what bar you like in London, so we'll know exactly what sort of stuff we should recommend for you in Barcelona. That still, I don't think, happens very well at all. So this whole idea of, again, big data, personalization, customers opting in, giving up their privacy to be rewarded with offers, I think that's another trend that should happen. I think there's so many more other ones. I mean, 3D, the other one I love for travel is the idea that you could have a game of Stockholm. So before I came here, I would have loved to play a game of how I can get the most enjoyment of my time in Stockholm. Okay. And then actually I'd know when I arrived, I'd know exactly what to do, and you'd have images of what the bars would be really like, and you know, that sort of stuff.
So you think commerce is going to be more visual and maybe moving pictures and maybe gamified or
I love gamification. It is this wonderful word, and I do think, I mean, so if you look at other models that I love, I mean, I think Shopkick's another one that I love. You know, it's the Foursquare, and Foursquare's an industry player in this, Foursquare for e-commerce. When I go into a retailer, it rewards me for that. But if it then really knows who I am, it then says, oh, you've just walked past this aisle, we know you watched that TV ad yesterday, here's the product, don't you want it, and here's a 10% coupon. I mean, all this stuff is still what's so exciting about e-commerce, and talking about, I guess, e-commerce 3.0, 4.0, whatever it is that we know that there's still so many more areas that don't deliver us as consumers a brilliant service.
Yeah, and also the excitement of shopping. So my wife is a designer, you know, Frida, and she likes the excitement of just going in and understanding the fabrics and the thing and how it's structured. Yeah. It's a very large part of the experience, and that's very difficult to move online. Have you seen anybody that is it's good at creating the happiness of shopping online, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, obviously one of the things people are really trying to do is the shop together idea. I'm not yet convinced. So I see something, and then online suddenly I ask my friends, do I look good in that?
Yeah,
I think that's one of the things. On the other side of that, if we're talking about the future of shopping, and I was actually at a Burberry's discussion the other day talking all about it, and what you see there is, well, what do you do with showrooming in-store? How do you use those vast cathedrals of shopping, which they will become more and more? And there you've obviously got, as many people may well already know, you've got RFID tags. You pick up the bag, you take it, or the dress rather, you pick up the dress, you then take it to the mirror in the showroom, and then suddenly you can swipe through, see what it looks like on the model, and eventually see what it looks like on you. But the future one, the one I'd love to do on all this stuff is I'd love to, when we go through an airport scanner, I'd love them to capture my 3D body image be able to say, upload that, and I get 15% off any site that rewards me for uploading my image, and then I can see what clothes look like on me. So I think that there's still more to be done. I think, you know, the other way to do it to make it more fun is probably that idea of seeing what stuff really looks like and then make it more social. I mean, we talk a lot about social commerce, and we couldn't talk about e-commerce 3.0 without mentioning that. Yeah. But I think there's very few examples. I mean, if you had Facebook on, and I've asked them, what are the real case studies of social commerce, people really buying and transacting online? And there are very few. Fab.com obviously claim a mantle here, and they claim 35% of their traffic from Facebook. But they might just, the worry is today, I think not long term, today I think they're slightly an exception. The reason being, Fab has all this quirky stuff. You know, I don't quite get it. But hey, I'm not arguing with the business model. It's still 150 million or something of revenues after 18 months. That's nice. But it's sort of, people want to share and talk about that quirky stuff. But there's not everything. You don't want to share about everything you buy.
No, exactly. So it's inherently, it's a conversation piece, and people want to make it social. So what do you think about the store? They're sort of very social, and you walk around. What's the future of the stores? If you were a real estate owner that had a lot of shops,
I'd cry. I'd start using them for education, teaching people to program, teaching people to do all stuff. I think stores are obviously, it's this wonderful trend for the consumer of showrooming. It's like you don't even want to stand in the queue, you don't want to buy it, you just want to look at it. And we've done this even, I mean, weirdly, we have done this with Madecom. We have a low-cost showroom on the 9th floor of our office building, where if you really do want to see the sofa, you can see it. You can't actually buy it there. You know, the idea is it really is, we're saying it's a showroom. And even, I was very heartened to see that even Sir Terence Conran, you know, Conran, a huge icon of retail, said that in whatever it is, 10 years' time, he didn't think he'd have any more shops. They would all be showrooms. So I think it is even more than, I think as you talk about shopping as entertainment, I think that's what they have to do, is just make it more and more entertaining, more fun, and view it as a different type of experience. The last layer, actually, of this, which we haven't talked about, is my other favorite innovation in the space is augmented reality. So we've seen, I don't know how much over here is Orasma or Blipper or all these companies where literally I just show my phone, I would highlight my phone over the dress in the window and I could see it on my girlfriend, and, you know, and or wife, sorry. You know, yeah, both would be really good augmented reality, wouldn't it? That would be really good.
Please erase that from the live broadcast. No, so there's obviously a lot of things going to happen in shopping, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs thinking about it in their think tanks wherever they are. And you created one of the most, or maybe the most powerful entrepreneurial think tank, the Founders Forum, where you bring together people like, you know, Wikipedia founders and Skype founders and so forth. How many are you now in total?
Well, it's less, as you know, it's really about a small number. There's 1,000 people globally, so we do it in Brazil and Mumbai and New York and others, but we try and keep it to sort of very small brainstorm, so sort of 100 of the seasoned entrepreneurs and then, more excitingly, 100 of the dynamic young upcoming entrepreneurs. And they're brainstorming, exactly as you say, what's the future of all this stuff, helping us all think through it.
And is there optimism in that group?
Yeah, I think this is what the fun thing is. We invite, as you know, a few old media types and a few other people, a few old retailers, you know, old school retailers, and they just find the whole thing so energizing, like being here, because when you're around entrepreneurs, technology entrepreneurs, all of us are thinking, like Nicholas, we're so lucky to be in this sector. You know, the rest of the world is seeing year-on-year declines in all their business and cannibalization.
Oh, sorry, you're having a recession. I was sorry.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't notice it. So yeah, I think they're incredibly optimistic, and I think obviously very cognizant of the fact also that the other thing that a recession does is it makes, I think, big companies less innovative. They're more focused on costs. So it gives even more opportunity for the startups to innovate and eat their lunch.
It's funny because you're a magician of sorts. When we were invited to London for Founders Forum, we started out by going to 10 Downing Street, and then James Cameron was sitting there. No, David Cameron. David Cameron. I was off at Avatar there for a while. David Cameron was sitting there saying, "Okay, how can we get you guys to move to London?" And they were really, really pitching London in a very sort of genuine and remarkable way. And I realized why a lot of entrepreneurs move to London, and you've been very involved in that. Can you share a little bit about this? Because there's a lot of initiatives here in Stockholm as well going on. Yeah. And then you also had a dinner at Hogwarts.
Yes, exactly. So we did the Harry Potter surprise thing.
To the actual Hogwarts dinner, and it's, you know, people were flying around. It was, so magician of sorts. But how are you working to create London as the the hub in Europe?
Well, I think the first thing they've done that's clever, and this is not me, it's the government. I think one thing which I was a little wary of at the beginning, but they've built up this, we talk about brands, and they built up this sub-brand called Tech City, which is East London to benefit from the Olympics. And I think that helped me as, it did actually, I'm a UK business trade ambassador, whatever that means, but so I'm trying to help that. And it helped me when I'd go to Israel and other places like that, package it up and say, look, there's this new initiative, Tech City, we're serious about it, and what that means is there's not just a location, but there's a whole load of packages that go with that within it. There's the entrepreneur visas, there's the tax incentives, and there's most importantly, probably
somebody taking notes here: tax incentives, entrepreneurs visas,
and also I think it's the convening power of government to get universities and the big corporates as well to create the cluster. So they've gone to the Intels and the Googles and the Facebooks and whatever and said, put some offices, put some development resource, put some buildings in this area with the universities as well. And so you're starting this stuff, just the momentum then builds on itself. But like everywhere, what London still needs, to be honest, is more billion-dollar success stories. There's a great cluster in Cambridge with quite a lot of billion-dollar success stories, and there's a good story coming out of Cambridge where they're going to lead. I think they've got a good chance of leading the Internet of Things, because they're quite deeply techie in Cambridge, and that'll need some new standards and stuff. So in London, I think the other thing, the amazing thing that's happened recently is many of you will probably know Joanna Shields, who runs...
She should have been here speaking yesterday, but she got busy with something.
So she's obviously running Facebook Europe, and then her new job is going to be running Tech City. So the government have persuaded her to leave a pretty big job running Facebook, actually EMEA, and to then take a government job promoting London as a technology centre. So I think...
But they've also engaged someone like yourself. You're an advisor of Cameron and Downing Street. How does that happen? Did they call you up and say, nice exit, Brent, on last minute. Could you come over here? We need some advice. Or do you sort of approach them? Or how does this happen?
No, the first way I got involved with government is always very funny. Was actually weirdly with Gordon Brown. And I said to one of his advisors, I said, he's really not my politics and whatever. She said, have you ever met him? I'm like, no. So she invited me to Chequers to meet him. And then the next thing I knew, they had put me on the UK government have a government business council. I don't know whether they have that in Sweden. I think it's a good idea. It's 12 of the top business leaders, and literally it was, I'd be sitting next to Richard Branson in that sort of group, and the head of Tesco's and whatever, and thinking, my own mother would say, what is my son doing here amongst these serious business people? But they wanted an entrepreneur, a sort of more junior entrepreneur. Obviously, Richard Branson kind of is one. So they have that forum, and then the other one now with the Conservatives, I'm really just on the UK as this business trade ambassador. And yeah, they just call you up and say, we want you to help with trade. And then it's just about relationships. I think the guys in number 10 Downing Street, there's some really bright young guys. And that's what's fun. It's like talking to entrepreneurs. When you find guys in government who are 30 years old and razor sharp and really trying to do something, and they've got a lot of power and authority to do it, that's interesting. So I think a lot of people just get, when you find that in government, you're just like, I don't need any official role, whatever, for that. I'm just going to help, and I'm going to get... and because we're already doing Founders Forum, convening entrepreneurs together, it makes sense to do something to help government more and more.
Thank you very much. A lot of key takeaways in commerce, and also maybe in how to make Sweden a tech city even more so. Thank you very much, Brent, for coming over.
Thank you, Ola. Thank you.